Hello, welcome everybody to the next interview today. I have Cllr Tom Giffard MS. He's a community councillor for Brackla, county councillor for Brackla, and MS for South Wales and West, I believe. Yes, which
Yes,
I
that's
think
all.
which I think actually covers me up here in Cummer in the Avon Valley.
Yeah, it's all of Bridgend County, Neath the Talbot and Swansea, and a little bit of RCT as well.
So I've actually talking to somebody who is my representative as, on some
Really.
level, being just outside of Bridgend. Anyway, thank you for doing this and giving me your time. I know your time's precious, and we've got about an hour today, and I'll try and keep on the time and that. And we do actually have residence questions today. Only the
Brilliant.
second time we've got resident questions. Alex Williams was the first one we had residence questions, and Tom's the next one. Anyway, Tom, give us a little bit about your background and what when you first stood for a political position.
Yeah, so for me, I first joined the Conservative Party when I was about 16. So I've been in the Conservative Party a long time. My family and my parents are not political at all. But for me, I kind of saw that David Cameron had just become the leader. And I found some of the things he was saying quite sort of inspirational, and then I agreed with a lot of what he had to say. So I joined the Conservative Party, and 15 years later or whatever we are, here we are. So as you mentioned, I've been a councillor in Brackla for the last 4.5 years, also community councillor, and then since May I've been a member of the Senate for South Wales West as well.
Oh, that's great. Sorry, everybody, if you see me wincing during this, it's not at Tom's answers. It's the fact that I've got an ear infection at the moment in this ear and a trapped nerve in my shoulder. So it's not the answers Tom is giving. So please be gentle with him. Right. So what what actually inspired you to stand? I know people say, "Oh, well, I had an inspirational leader like David Cameron
Yeah,
or Jeremy Corbyn or whatever," but there must be something locally that
yeah,
triggered you to
absolutely.
stand locally.
So for me, I live in the ward I represent. I live in Brackla. I'm really passionate about Brackla, and I really want to see it being sort of better represented by, the local councillors. And fundamentally, I didn't think it was being. I thought that there were a lot of issues locally that the council and the councillors at that time were quite slow to respond to. Um, and I thought, well, something's got to change here, and I became the person, and I thought, all right, maybe I can make a difference. So it's really a passion about the community. There's also kind of more cross bridge end things, I guess I'd say, in terms of, like, for example, council tax. As a conservative, I believe in low taxes, and so I think Bridgend, I think it's one of the highest council tax rates in the UK. And so, when you have a level of council tax like we do in Britain and you pay that much money, you have a right to question, well, actually, what are we getting for this money? If you're paying more, you expect a better service. And I think you and a lot of your viewers will probably question, all right, well, what is that better service? What does that look like? So for me, really wanted to, drill into that detail as well by becoming that councillor and be able to go through, budget reports and see if they're spending the money wisely. Because ultimately, my view is that council and politicians generally should be taking taxes from people as a last resort and not as a first. Because ultimately, that is money that people go out every day to work, and work hard to earn. It is their money. And the less of it that we can take as politicians, there are some things absolutely fundamentally we need to do. And I don't think anybody would dispute that. But I think, perhaps it's gone, a step too far now. Perhaps we're relying on government and councils to do too much, and therefore, we're paying for it in our taxes.
I don't think people would actually complain about paying higher taxes if they could see the results at the end of it, the better services, more services. But we seem to be going in, our taxes seem to be going up, but our services seem to be shrinking or disappearing completely or not there. As you know, I've had problems with housing recently, and you very kindly offered to help. I was promised 4 callbacks, still haven't had one of them, and it was supposed to be an emergency housing situation. Fortunately, now Shelter Cymru have helped. They advised that I was due 6 months eviction notice because of the pandemic and the increase of the laws, not 2 months. So I do have a 4-month grace period now. But it was the fact that I was promised 4 callbacks, not got one. I spent a fortune ringing the council trying to sort this out. Yourself offered to help, and many other councillors have actually offered to help. And I know the service is there, I know it's stretched, but just a little callback when you're promised a callback within 5 days, then within 24 hours, then the same day twice, and you don't get anything. You wonder, well, are the taxes being spent wisely? Is the service efficient enough? So I see your point.
And I think for me, sorry to interrupt you, but I think for me as well, we can have the political back and forth, and obviously there'll be things that if you had a Labour politician on here, they would disagree with me fundamentally, and I respect that. But ultimately, the key role for me as a politician is to be an advocate on behalf of people, as you mentioned, that perhaps have been fallen through the gaps in the system or have been failed by the systems that are created. So from my perspective, that is sort of priority one for me, making sure that people I'm very fortunate to represent aren't falling through the gaps in the system that you mentioned.
Yeah, I think because I've refused a lot of help from councillors to help me sort out the housing situation, and I suppose in a way I was cutting my nose off to spite my face, and I was saying I should be like everybody else. I should have to go the process of everybody else because I know the systems, and I know people, and people can go to their councils at any point to get help with something like this, but there are people out there who are afraid to ask for help and alone. And and I was cutting my nose off to spite my face. I was saying this should be doing the proper way, and I should be the same as everybody else.
Yeah, and if residents like you and politicians like me aren't knocking on the doors and saying, "Look, this isn't working," and your example is one, but there will be other people as well that are also in that situation. If we're not doing that, if we're not knocking on that door and saying, "Look, this is just not working," that will never ever change. So I understand what you're saying about, I feel like I should be treated like everyone else, but unfortunately, not everyone will think to go to their MP or their MS or their councillor. So almost by doing that, you're doing it for yourself, but you're doing it on behalf of all the others that might not, with hopefully a view to that changing in the future.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll get off that because I could rant on that all day. We could.
Yeah, apologies.
no, that was my fault. I went on. We'll go on to community council now. I'm a big advocate of community councils. I'm a community councilman myself in Cllr on Coisy Hire, and I think community councils do much better work with much less. They're more efficient with what they're doing and spending money. Now, as you say, you've been a community councillor for 4 years in Brackla. I know in the last year you had the Save the Fields thing. You and Mayor John Spanswick both stood up and counted for your community in that respect. What has Brackla Community Council been up to the last 4 years? I know the last year with the pandemic, everything has been delayed on what community councils wanted to do, but before that, there is a lot of good work that's been done in Brackla. Could you give us a bit more information on what's happened?
Yeah, and I agree with you. Community councils are best placed almost to do quite a lot of good work, and I think we talk a lot, actually. I will get onto Brackla in a minute, but we talk a lot, I think, in this country about devolution, and I think too much of devolution is focused on, right, what powers can we take from Westminster or from Brussels and shove them into Cardiff, and then they stay in Cardiff and they never get beyond Cardiff, they never reach council chambers like BCBC, and those powers certainly never reach community councils either. And as you say, all right, I wouldn't expect the community council to be running local health services, for example, but community councils, as you rightly say, are best placed to know what is going on in their communities, and actually the ones quite often that deliver on the ground. In terms of Brackla, some of the things we've done over the last 4 years. So just to give you an idea of the political composition of Brackla, the first sort of 2 years it was Labour run, and then the last 2 years have been Conservative run. But Brackla has been one of those examples where we've had, in the main, actually, despite political differences, as a group of councillors that have wanted to work together to get things done for the good of the community. There hasn't really been many occasions where kind of political back and forth has kind of pulled that off the track, if you like. So we run events every year in normal times. As you say, we do a senior citizens dinner, a fireworks night, a fun day in the summer, and there are all sorts of things that all members of the community kind of get involved in. People look forward to, but obviously, as you say, the last year and a half has been very difficult to run events like that. We maintain grass verges and the flowers around the community. Brackla actually recently won a Silver Guild Wales in Bloom Award for the quality of the streetscape and the flower arrangements and everything in Brackla. So it really shows, we're doing a job comparable with anywhere else in Wales, really. We maintain sort of children's play parks, the community centre, which loads of groups run and use. And we've tried to invest in things we think the community would want to see. So things like defibrillators, which are a really hot topic at the minute, and something I'm looking for in my other role in the Senate. More access to defibrillators, because that if people have a defibrillator immediately after they have a cardiac issue, the chances of surviving that cardiac arrest was much, much higher. We've invested in little things like dog waste bags. You can believe the number of people that come into the community council office to collect dog waste bags. And actually, since we've done that, the amount of dog waste in and around the community has lessened greatly. Things like Christmas lights. And we've done all of that in the context of, since we've been running the council, of freezing council tax as well. So back to what I said earlier about not trying to tax people. We try to do as much as we can, but try to take as little of people's money to do it.